Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's workshop. Today, we're going to talk about time mastery, time management from within. All right. I think that this is one of the most important concepts that you can manage for your life. I'm excited to be here with you today. My name is Nina Urman. I'm a life coach and facilitator. I mostly work with executives, with CEOs from all around the world. I also have a mastermind for women leaders, which is a 3-month container where they get to experience all of my work and where they get to reinvent themselves, right? And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because in this mastermind, one of the things that the women tell me consistently is what they have gotten as value is the time for themselves, because they've consciously decided to invest this time in them on purpose. Okay. And another layer of who I am is that I'm a proud mom and stepmom of 7 beautiful children. And I know the subject of time management too well. You have to be so organized as a parent, so organized, so kind of, structured in your brain to be able to beautifully lead the family, right? So I believe that of all the topics I teach, this is probably the one that can create the most freedom for you, that can bring you the most financial abundance, and that provides you with a legacy, the best legacy that you can possibly have for yourself, because you create that freedom in your mind. If you followed some of the previous sessions, I'm all about mindset and how we can use our brain to create the results we want. And before we even get started in some of the tools for time management, I just want to tell you that I hear people talk about time management a lot, but the truth is, and I want you to really write this down if you have your journals open, truth is, time really can't be managed. And it doesn't need to be managed. It doesn't need to be mastered. Time just is. What needs to be managed, what needs to be mastered is us, as the human beings, is our relationship to time, right? What needs to be managed is our thinking about time. It's just like money. Like if you think about money, is just sits there. Money is just something we collectively agreed is that, the paper that we look at means a value, right? And we need to manage our mind around it. And so it's useful to have this construct. It's useful to think about time management as a construct. But before we can get started, what I want you to understand is that there's no such thing as managing something external that we can't control. Time is really a mental construct. And so is money, right? It doesn't mean anything until we have a thought about it, until we gave it some meaning. We've created this mental construct of 24 hours and minutes and days and months. And we kind of all collectively agreed on it, that this is what it's going to be. And then we manage around this mental construct, but it's still a mental construct, right? So same with money. We've just decided the pieces of paper mean something. So I really want you to see this before we get into the tools. As a group, as a society, we've decided today, I feel like time is very scarce. Nobody has ever time. Everybody's super busy. And so the most important thing that I'm going to teach you today is not how to manage hours and days, but how to manage your mind as you think about hours and days, okay? So make sure whenever you feel like there's not enough time, or there's too much time, or I can't find the time, just know that time is always there, always consistent, never changes. And there's really always the same amount of time that there ever will be, okay? It's just time. So what I want you to do is to notice your thoughts about it. When you think about time, what comes up for you? Does it create anxiety? Does it create opportunity? What does time stand for you? When I say the word like time, what is it? What is it for you? And when you think about time, is actually much more valuable than money, because you can create more of it. right? Money you can always create more of. Time is a limited resource that we can't create more of, but it's very constant, right? It's always there. So the amount of time, okay, this is a little bit of a mind trip. So if the amount of time you spend working on time is always going to bring you value back, right? The amount of time that you're going to spend planning your week, consciously putting time into, programs like this is going to help you moving forward because you're going to create time for yourself. Okay. All right. What all of you probably want to know though, because we feel like time is such a limited resource, is how to get more done in less time. This is the question that I get in my mastermind a lot from the women that are mostly high achieving and they're movement leaders. And they're like, okay, Nina, I get it, but tell me, how do I get more done? I want to do more, create more time, so be more efficient, more productive. And so I want you to imagine, here's the world we live in, right? We live in a world of information overload and disorganization. I want you to imagine this kind of, this woman, I don't know if you've seen a picture of like just, buried in paperwork, right? There's so much to do and information overload. We have the internet and all the different social media and the channels and just so much coming at us. And it's important to understand what's going on. We have to understand that there's the symptoms and then there is the disease, right? The dis-ease, like we're not at ease with our relationship with time. So this can take different forms depending on how you manage or don't manage your life in general. But this is how most of us, I found, are operating. Some of us have like this super long to-do list that never gets done. This is how I used to operate. Like I've had this to-do list and it's just never ending, right? Because there's just so much more to do and every day is more and more and more. Some people I've seen, they use their email inbox as their to-do list. And I know this to be true because sometimes I see, I pick up an iPad or an iPhone or somebody and I see there's like 67,000 emails in their inbox. This is a very inefficient system, right? Your brain literally can't remember more than 3 things at a time. So we constantly like recycle and ping new information. It's costing you a lot of energy. And then as the image I just gave you is like physical files everywhere, triggers to remind you what to do. Like, okay, I got to do this, I got to do this. Like it's all kind of disorganized. Some of us use post-it notes, and I'm actually not against a good post-it note just to remind you, like this is the priority of today. I like to do this at my desk as well. But the problem with post-it notes, sometimes it's that if they sit there for too long or there's too many of them, your brain just doesn't register them anymore, right? So it's like this notification that you keep on just deleting, right? It's like clear it, ping, ping, ping. So none of these systems truly work. Or like what I didn't say is the kind of the good old-fashioned way to keep on track is just to keep everything in your brain, right? It's very rare that you find people that actually do this. Most of us have a calendar in some way. Or electronic notifications or all these things, but I promise you that there are still people out there that just try to hold it on all in their heads. So none of the systems really seem to work. And some people tell me they feel so anxious and so overwhelmed that they actually don't get to do anything on their to-do list. Our brains are not equipped for that information overflow and that disorganization because it creates chaos, right? So our brain is used to jumping around all of the time. So what is it that people are feeling? And you will know if that relates to you. You'll feel disorganized, you'll feel restless, you feel distracted, anxious, overwhelmed. Like this is an indulgent emotion that comes back a lot. And some of us feel like like we're just a fraud. We're not getting things done. We're not enough, always behind, just running after time. And all of these symptoms of information overload lead to an inability to focus, right? Some people have neurological structures and conditions where they have a hard time focusing, but for most of us, this is not the problem, right? Most of you who've been listening to this talk don't have that, but a lot of us are creating this experience for ourselves, right? Our brain is jumping around. I have to, I should, I must, I'm so busy. I just gotta get this done. And here's what I want you to know. It's not really you. Like, there's nothing that's wrong with you. It's not your fault, okay? There's nothing wrong, or nothing has gone wrong. It's the way that we were conditioned and socialized to think about time and productivity. Okay, let me explain this, because this is really important. Over your lifetime, you have absorbed messages, ideas, beliefs around time, on what you should be doing with your time, how you can become more productive, how you can become more efficient, how you can create more value with your time. Especially women, because I work in my mastermind, I work a lot with women. I feel like there's a lot of guilt around not being productive, not doing things all of the time, right? So we have been raised and socialized to believe certain thoughts, and some of them do not serve us. Some of them are actually limiting us. So the way we think about our world and productivity is important. It impacts our organizational experience and our experience of time. Okay, all of this is super important. So with this kind of introduction, I want to give you 3 secrets, if you wish, or 3 kind of main ways of thinking about time that will create more freedom for you. Okay. And I want to start with myths that we have. So the number one statement that I hear is, I just don't have enough time. And what I want to offer you is that you don't need more time. We all think that we need more time, but the truth is, if you do not know how to use your time efficiently, having more time won't help you. You will just have more time to use it efficiently. Okay, you following this? This is super important. None of us are actually performing at our peak performance. If you look at the scientific research behind this, like, we're using maybe 20% of the capacity of our brain, which is sad in a way, right? We're like, wait a minute, we have so much potential that we aren't tapping into. So here's the thing, you have plenty of time already. You're just wasting your time and on, first of all, second guessing yourself and putting yourself last. Okay, so this is, a lot of women are going through this, but there's men as well in this category that they're just having a lot of insecurities and a lot of self-doubts and catering to everybody and putting themselves last. So I want you to kind of check in with yourself. Like, how many of you, like, for instance, reread emails that you've just sent, just making sure that everything is okay. Is this good enough? How many of you constantly put other people first? Like, you keep yourself available to other people, moving other people forward. You never get to the big picture priorities for you because you cater to others. I had this one client, Anna, who, she came to me and she just felt she couldn't get done anything. And her explanation was, well, I have to be available for my children. I have to be available for my family. And there was always emergencies and urgencies, always something happening. And she believed this to be true. Like, she was convinced she was just making an observation. And, she had some help. I think she did have a nanny. And but she still thought, one of her things was, I can't close my door. I have to leave my door open. What if somebody cries? What if something happens? What if they need me? And so she would keep her door open. And she wouldn't silence her phone. She would just like never get a rest for her brain. She would just always be on alert. And when we did the work together, I asked her to track her activity. I said to her, listen, Anna, just tell me like how many times actually emergencies happen, how many times you actually being pulled out of the room, interrupted, how many real emergencies do you have to attend to? And she came back to me and she said, well, like 3 times a week, interruptions or real emergencies. And so it's so interesting what happens in our brain. Like she was almost like surprised. She said, oh my God, that's the difference between the facts, like what actually happened, and the stories that we tell ourselves, right? Her story was she needed to be available all the time. So she would never close her door, never rest, wasn't efficient in her work, right? And her brain was pinging back and forth. So this is very common, putting ourselves last and not giving ourselves enough attention to actually rest, to be then more productive. So we're socialized to believe to be available at all times. Men and women, right? We're like constantly on our phones. If we don't reply on a WhatsApp message or an SMS right away, we feel like we've maybe lost connection with that friend or whatever. So it's like that constant solicitation. We leave our doors open. We're kind of monitoring other people's emotional lives. I talked about this 2 sessions ago, where we feel like we're in charge of other people's emotions, and that takes a lot of our brain energy, right? So, and honestly, like I can relate because I have 7 children, right? And sometimes they do need us right away, but most of the time they're okay without us. And that's what I offered Anna, right? And I think one of her thoughts, one of her core beliefs was, I'm a bad mom if I don't give them attention. I'm a bad mom if I'm not there at the right second. I'm a bad mom if I close the door on them, right? So I want you to just kind of check in with yourself. Where are you lying to yourself that you don't have enough time? Where are you spending your time and energy that is actually not creating results, and using it as an excuse to not get things done? Nothing will ever change if you don't learn how to prioritize your own time, protect your own time. And also, if you cannot cope with someone being upset ever, you will lose your time very efficiently, right? Because if you think about it, like, of course, sometimes kids get upset, or even your boss gets upset, or things like this, but that's where the emotional intelligence and emotional mastery works comes in as well. You need to learn how to process emotions. Thoughts like my work isn't good enough, and that's why you reread your emails 5 times before you send them. Like, imagine how much time that costs you, right? That's where your time is going, right? There's a lot of people pleasing and a lot of energy going externally rather than internally, right? So we're second guessing our work, we're second guessing ourselves, we're second guessing our expertise, we're doing extra work. I've met one of my other clients who is like doing extra work, discounting the work that she's already done, not charging enough for her work, and then kind of running after time all of a sudden. Like, these are the patterns that keep you in inefficiency, right? I had another client that was a lawyer, and she was working all of the time, and lawyers usually charge billable hours. That's what they call them. And she said to me, I'm working all the time, just can't meet my targets, and there's no way I can bill more, right? That's what she would say to me. And the reason why she wasn't meeting her billable hours was not because she wasn't working enough, because she was working around the clock, but she was systematically underbilling, right? She would spend 3 hours in a project, and then she would think, I don't know, that should have taken me 2. And then she would compare herself to men. So she would say, well, I don't know, but Billy from the office next to me could have probably did it in 1. And so I don't want my clients to think that I'm not good enough. And so I'm going to lower the price, right? So my question to you is, how are you undercounting, triple, double checking yourself, rereading things that you already sent, number checking, all of that? How much are you second guessing yourself? Because this is where your time is going, doubling your work, and not charging enough for your services. Okay. If you spend a lot of time people pleasing, that also has a double kind of negative effect, because it also creates resentment. Like we talked about this last time, we talked about relationships. It's like it creates that kind of illusion of connection because you're making other people happy, but actually you're doing it at your own expense. And usually that's also a time waster in a way. Okay, so the first secret was you don't really need more time. Okay, you with me? This is super important. The second secret or tool, and it's kind of like the productivity paradox, is that you don't actually need to work harder to get more done. We all think that we're lazy. Like that's another kind of societal norm, especially with the people I work with. I'm sure there are other people that might not think that, but it feels like, I've built my coaching business and you have 7 kids and all of these things, and my brain still offers me, Nina, you're not doing enough. You're lazy, and I have to kind of override that programming, that default mode of thinking. And what you need to do instead of working so hard to get more done, stay with me, is to rest more. Okay, this might feel like there might be some resistance coming up for you, because we're socialized to believe that we're lazy and we never work enough. The whole purpose of life is to be working and being available to other people. And, if we're resting or relaxing, we're doing something wrong, or something, or worse, there's something wrong with us and something wrong at the core. Why aren't you doing anything? Women especially think we should be doing more. And, if it's not work, then it's laundry. And if it's not laundry, it's cooking. And if it's not cooking, there's always something else, right? So this cycle goes like, should be working more. I do not reserve to rest. And there's kind of this perpetuation, right? And then there's something wrong with me if I don't get the work done. And then anything on the to-do list gets like doubled and triple checked. So the problem is that over time, we actually become less efficient. It's a terrible vicious circle. So you overwork yourself and you're tired, you put more things on your to-do list, you don't get them done. And so the next day you just, bury yourself in work again. Yeah. So you like late at night, if you haven't done it, all of it, then you're like, I haven't done enough. Productivity is doing more. Productivity is my worth, right? People say this all the time. Well, what am I worth if I'm not doing something? My worth is always up for debate. So I better do more. And I can relate to this because I'm a high achiever and I've done a lot of things in my life. And sometimes I feel like, what would have happened if now I consciously schedule rest time, and I give myself 3 hours, I give myself recharges and nourishment, and I know myself now, right? Like when that high achiever brain goes like, oh yeah, I'm going to do more and more and more, kind of pause myself, and I can be the observer of the thinking pattern and kind of climb outside myself and see, okay, Nina, it's time for rest. You have to learn how to believe that you deserve rest. If you rest, you become more efficient. So that's become kind of my mantra. The more I rest, the more I get done. So, but it's like the undoing of all of these thought patterns, right? So learn, and that's a skill, learn how to rest. It's super hard for many of us. It's same like meditation, right? When I say to people, okay, let's try meditation, let's try breathing, it's like, oh my God, like I feel so restless. People say to me, I feel so restless. Like, how can I just sit for 5 minutes and do anything? Okay, so this was kind of the second secret for you, is that working harder makes you worse at your work. and you need the rest. Okay. And then, okay, this third secret is more about another kind of myth that people have around time is, well, I just need to get more discipline. I just get more willpower. We're socialized to believe that we don't have enough commitment. We just don't have enough follow through. And if we just push harder and buckle down, follow the rules, then everything's going to get done. Right? We kind of need supervision because of this information overload and disorganization. And the truth is that, in my opinion, is that what we need to change is actually the self-talk to ourselves so we can get more done. So if you have been trying to drive yourself by motivating yourself, by kind of, driving yourself with criticism a lot, like being hard on yourself, I need to just get this done. Oh, just like, buckle down. I want to offer you that the criticism isn't really getting you anywhere. I want to ask you, how is this working for you? How are you feeling when you talk to yourself like this? Does it really motivate you? Do you really get things done? And from what place and what energy do you get things done? Like thinking, if I don't drive myself hard enough, nothing's going to get done. No matter what I did is not enough. No matter what I accomplish is not enough. Right? My identity is linked to my productivity, as I said earlier, my worth, right? I tell people that have achieved many things, and I'll say, you must be very proud of your achievements, etc. And some of the women, well, some of the both men and women actually tell me, well, like often we underplay it. Oh, I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. It was just lucky. It's almost like I've tricked somebody into, being in business with me or whatever. I wasn't very hard. It doesn't really count. And I need a bigger accomplishment to feel even better. I've achieved this not because of it, because I was actually good, right? But because the external circumstances, and kind of give it more credit than it actually deserves. And so one of the things I want to offer you is this thought that maybe you have achieved the things that you've achieved, not because you were driving yourself so hard and motivating yourself externally, but despite of it. So it's kind of backwards, right? You have accomplished what you have accomplished despite being so hard on yourself. Like, what if for 1 minute we turned it around and we talked nicely to ourselves? When I figured this one out, it kind of blew my mind, because, being, always kind of this leader, prestigious schools and university careers and degrees and, degrees in finance and strategy, and, all of my accomplishments as a professional tennis player, and so on, like more selective, difficult things that I've done. I wondered if, and all the journey was there's a lot of self-criticism in it. We don't call it self-criticism, of course. At that stage, it was like, okay, I'm just going to do the realistic things. When it dawned on me that maybe if I don't talk to myself that badly, I would actually achieve more, and more importantly, enjoy more, right? If I rest and I prioritize and I actually enjoy my work and I follow my passions, and I'll actually be more efficient and create more time for myself. That really blew my mind. This is all the deprogramming that I had to do. And I'm mentioning it here because I know so many of you listening to this can relate. This is what happened when I started to rest and talk to myself nicely, talk to myself with love or loving words, right? Then I started to be so much more efficient. I was doing my thought work. Mindset changes is what's really going to change your life, right? And I want to kind of give you a couple of really practical tools, but I think these 3 secrets, if you can keep them in your mind, are really going to change your life. No matter how often I teach mindset change, people always want to know the details. So they'll ask me like, okay, Nina, but what does your desktop look like? What does your calendar look like? How do you organize your time? Right? And I do have systems. I do have, kind of the concrete process of how you can organize your life and how you can organize your brain and so on, that I do plan my week, and there's certain processes, but I promise you, like, none of it matters if you don't change your mindset about it. If you don't start talking nicely to yourself and resting and prioritizing your life, if you cannot identify those beliefs, that self-sabotaging thoughts about time, right? Like, imagine what would happen if you had, freedom in your brain and in your mind, and you're never overwhelmed and you're never behind, and you don't have to be mean to yourself to get things done. If you could just clear up your mind, I think what you need to do is to sit down and prioritize what is important to you first, right? In a way that reflects who you are at your essence. And this is very interesting because I often ask people, what are the 5 most important things for you? And, the biggest hits are family and health and relationships with closed ones, and those precious moments in travel and so on. And then I ask people, like, so how much time does that get? And most often it's kind of reversed, right? Oh, well, it's kind of the most important thing in my life, but it doesn't get the same time and attention, right? So you got to have the mindset shift, and then you got to sit down and really prioritize what is important to you. And that then gets a slot in your calendar, right? That gets the prioritization. Like, it's all about planning. The first process has to be planning. I think one of the most important things that we have to remember is that time is relative, right? The way we experience time is, like 5 minutes in a dentist's office can feel like a lifetime. And sometimes 5 minutes is just nothing. Like, we don't experience time as a fact. And the reason why we don't is, like, sometimes time goes fast and sometimes time goes slow, is just because of how our thinking process is working, right? Now, there's something inside our brains that resists planning. We resist making decisions ahead of time. And the issue with this is that we kind of want to be spontaneous and flexible and kind of just free. But I can tell you that the opposite is true. Hear me say this, like, it's the more you plan, the more free you will actually be. And here's why: the more you plan, the more you will be able to deliver yourself the results that you actually want. You'll create the exact life you want. You'll create opportunities for yourself because you've planned them ahead of time. You'll be able to produce so much more. You'll feel so much more in control of your life. People misunderstand spontaneity is somehow freedom, but really what it's saying is it's creating excuses for yourself, right? Now, some of you, the reason why you don't plan, the reason why you don't prioritize your time is because you think ahead and you don't trust yourself with the follow through, right? You figure if I don't make any plans, then I can't be disappointed of myself. And so you hide and you don't allow yourself the disappointment. An example I would use is, if you made a lunch date with me and we had an agreement, you'd show up on time, and you would be there, or if you couldn't make it, you'd call it ahead of time and tell me. But you wouldn't blow me off, not show up, or not tell me anything, right? But this is what we're doing with ourselves often, right? Because we're out of self-integrity, and we're going to be like, okay, this is what I want to do on Tuesday morning. I want to, I don't know, read that book, or call that friend, or go to the gym is a good one. And then when it comes to the time where we go renegotiating with ourselves, most of us don't respect our own time. We respect other people's time much more than we do ourselves. So we treat our other people much better than we treat ourselves. And I'm not saying we shouldn't treat other people, at least the same way as we would treat ourselves, right? Right. And I want to say, if you're running your life as if you would be the most important person to respect and love, that will then show up in all areas of your life. And it doesn't come naturally, right? It doesn't come naturally. Like, sometimes I'm thinking, like, why aren't we just born with self-respect? Why aren't we just born with self-integrity, which make things so much easier? But I believe that's actually the curriculum of life, right? Where we need to go to that contrast to understand where we are, right? That's the session 2 weeks ago, where we talked about emotions, right? Again, how is the contrast of happy, sad, angry, and joyful, like all of these contrasts are being shown to us, and it's also in the realm of time for sure. If we honored our plans, we would be in so much more integrity. Like, if I did everything that I said I'll do and I put it in my calendar, then my brain can relax and I'll just get to work. But if I'm constantly pinging back and forth between the to-do lists, and if I don't have a plan and just try to keep it all in my head, it will eventually create, not the results I want. Let's say it this way. Okay. And then we try to hide, right? Because our brain's going to tell us, oh, no, that doesn't matter. Go eat, go hide, go be afraid, right? This is how we stay protected. It pulls us from deliberate planning. And as humans, actually, this is our superpower. It's our ability to plan something, to follow through on a plan, to be consistent in creation. This is not something that animals can do. It's something that we've evolved. We're evolved to doing naturally. So many of us have learned it in our programming in childhood, and it makes it easier as adults. But even more of us haven't learned, like, to honor our time on a consistent basis, right? We literally have to overcome that part of our brain that is a survival brain, in order to step outside of ourselves and look at our calendar, look at our time planning, and make decisions from that conscious place, right? So I want you to ask yourself, have you ever thought that you lost time by not planning? How much time have you lost by not opening up your calendar, writing all the things down that you need to do, and putting them in the calendar and just kind of doing them one by one? Well, you can do the opposite, right? You can make time by planning. You can create time on purpose. And the reason why I know this, because of how much I'm able to do this now. I can do so much, I get so many more things done than before, because I organize myself. And before you ask, I'm going to give you the answer. Is like, what I do is I sit down on Saturdays or Sundays and I plan out the whole week in advance, and I'll do the to-do list, the never-ending to-do list, right? I'm just emptying up my brain. I'm going to write everything down on a piece of paper, and I'm going to ask myself, and more, what else? And I'm going to give it like a good hour, which is huge. It's a huge amount of time. You could be doing other things, but I am investing in my time, right? I'm emptying out my brain. And then I'm looking at this list, and I'm making it smaller and smaller and smaller. Like, what is really important to me? What is the priorities? And then the priorities actually get slots in my calendar. And then I throw the to-do list away. I don't even look at it anymore. Like, it doesn't It doesn't matter because everything is in my calendar and I can go through it and follow through on it. And that's the hardest part. It's not even calendaring. I don't know if I can say this word right now, but it's not about putting stuff in the calendar. It's about following through and being in self-integrity, right? And then the other thing that you can create time with is making decisions strongly, right? If you like most of us that are in indecision, that's such a time waster, right? We're limbo, the time that we spend before making a decision and the time we spend regretting the decision. If we just make strong decisions and strong choices in our life, that is something that is going to create so much more time for us. And saying no. I talked about people pleasing earlier. The more we can say no, the more we can say yes to ourselves and no to the things that we truly don't want to do. Because remember, people pleasing is lying. It's creating resentment over time. The more we can set our boundaries for our time, the more we will get done, right? Way too many of us are people pleasers. Way too many of us say yes when we should say no. And that's one of the time savers, let's say, for it. So you make a plan for it, you plan deliberately, you don't deviate from the plan. When somebody asks you to accommodate their schedule or their plan and it doesn't work for you, you say no. You learn to practice saying no without explaining yourself. You don't need to offer an explanation. And the other thing that I would say in terms of like how to create time is to take massive action, right? Instead of wondering how you should do something and spending a lot of time thinking about it, just do it. Just do the thing, right? You want to find out how to do it, start doing it. You'll immediately know if something is working or not. And then you can go back and try different things. And another thing that is a time creator that might surprise you is actually failure. It's, you can, by failing, actually create more time. So let me explain this because it's a little bit tricky. It's almost, you know, when they say the quickest way to success is failure, because you're doing this massive actions and you're trying and you're failing at something, but then at least you know what's not working, right? Because so many of us just hiding and not wanting to engage and to commit. And so failure is actually one of the fastest way to progress and create time for you, because you know this is not working, this is what might be, and then you make another guess and you move forward. And another thing, and this is something that I will end with, just to give you kind of perspective on what our brain is doing. When you plan something today, let's say for tomorrow, for sure, you're not going to want to do it. For sure, you don't want to do the plan. And here's why this is important. You know, when I talked about emotional adulthood a couple of sessions ago, yes, last week actually, it's almost like we need to understand that our brain is always going to be a little bit in a battle with us, because it's going to want to override things for pleasure. Like one of the things our brain wants is to, it is actually to be very efficient with the habits that we've programmed it already with, right? So the moment you will want to plan something, and if it's not in a habit of yours already, it will be very inefficient for the brain, because it's going to require a lot of energy, and you will want to deviate from the plan, and you'll want to go something pleasurable instead. Okay, so let's say you decided you're going to wake up at 7 in the morning and go running, and that's really important to you, and you know it's good for you, but then at 6:50 you're like, oh my God, I'd just rather sleep another hour, right? This is what's happening. I want to respond to how I feel in the moment. So that's when planning is going to be so important when it comes to overriding the survival mechanism system. Okay, I've given you a lot of information. Maybe a last tool before I close this, and one more tip. So Another thing of how you can create time is delegation. When you think about the value of your time and what you are good at doing, it's very important to utilize delegation. Who else can do this for me? And I promise you, there are people that love the stuff that you don't want to do. There's people in my company that do things that I don't want to do because this is what I'm good at and I love doing that. Right? So it's all about how can I organize myself? Who can be helpful for me? Sometimes you can exchange things. So this is kind of, all of the tips, right? What did I tell you? There's failure, there's massive action, there is saying no, there is planning ahead of time, following through. No distractions is another, no multitasking. This is also something that is just making your brain go ping, ping, ping. And then being busy, that's another one. I just thought about this morning. It was like, I'm just not going to use the word in my vocabulary of being busy. Being busy is always optional. Define that word for yourself and then don't use it. Okay. What does it mean to be busy? Like being busy as a bee. And sometimes people will say to me, well, that's like an honors credit, right? But you have the choice of how to look at the items that you're currently doing. Okay. I want to give you your power back. I know that your time is very valuable and it is a limited resource. So I want you to never be at the effect of time. Start doing things, stop distractions, they're pulling off your task, they're preventing your progress. Stop multitasking, plan, say no, move forward, plan with precision, with discipline, with integrity, honor your plan, constrain your focus, fail, and you will create so much time. All my love, and I'll see you very soon.